Hello and welcome back. I'm home from Edgelit and back where I belong. It's very hot and I'm not a fan. Okay, we're going to talk about something. There's probably, if you're sensitive to this sort of thing, don't watch. There's going to be some unpleasant things being discussed, but also I want to try and point out how funny it is sometimes, so it's not going to be all like a drag or whatever. But I've been reading, I spent the weekend reading actually a book called After, because you may have noticed that Netflix has added a film version of the book, and I watched it with Bill thinking, oh, this is going to be really funny, it's going to be like The Room or something like that. We were fully prepared for trash, but no, it's just kind of boring, and we ended up turning it off halfway through. If you don't know what After is, it's a book that started off as a story on Wattpad. I'm completely not gonna say anything bad about that at all, because I think that's great. I think it's good that you can just write whatever you want online, and it may or may not get picked up, depending on how popular it is. But anyway, this was picked up. It became a really popular. It was kind of a One Direction fan fiction, but the character Hardin, not Harry, is completely made up. It's not Harry Styles at all. It's kind of like Harry if he was transplanted into a college setting and became like the school bully. It's not Harry Styles. But, the author said in a foreword that was who she had in mind at the time. And they've since leaned very heavily on that when it comes to promotion for the film and for the book. And obviously they knew people were going to be curious about this, so they leaned pretty heavy on that. If I was Harry, I think I would be furious. I'm not into One Direction. I don't know what they're like, but I'm presuming he's not an abusive stalker. I could be wrong. I imagine that he's not thrilled about this. But, I thought I would dive in, seeing as curiosity got the better of me after a short conversation on Twitter about how the book was so much worse than the film. So I thought, well, why not give it a go? And, props to the author. I have to give dues where I should. I read that thing like a demon. My friend came over to spend the weekend with us, and every time we paused what we were watching, I was on my phone and I was reading. And I got to halfway through book 2, and I stopped at a very definite point, which I will come to, because I just thought, I've had enough. It's not even funny anymore. I'm very stressed. Let's have a chat about this. So that is what we're gonna do. I understand the bad boy thing when it comes to 50 Shades of Grey. As long as people are aware that this relationship dynamic is not for the real world, I don't really see an issue with people kind of treating it like a fantasy or a so bad it's good thing that makes them laugh, Same with After, if you want to read it for a laugh, that's fine, or if you genuinely like it, sorry, please don't hate me. I kind of get the fantasy aspect of it. I get that, yes, it's highlighting an abusive relationship and people need to talk about that and be aware. But I'm not going to, some people were kind of having a go at people online for saying that they enjoyed it. Just let people have it, as long as people are aware, as long as we're talking about this, What's the character's name again? Tessa. She goes to college for the first time. Apparently her mum is like a perfectionist. She doesn't like her daughter sort of stepping out of line. She has very clear sort of, you've got to behave this way. And she already has a boyfriend called Noah from home, who is nice but kind of a square, But we don't really get to see any proper interaction with her and her mum. Her mum does kind of say, oh my god, you can't stay here, this is a bad room with bad roommates. But you don't fully get any, like, there's a lot of telling and not a lot of showing. I know that rules are there to break and they don't always matter, but you just don't really get any proper kind of idea from your own experience that this is how the mother is and this is what their relationship dynamic is. You just sort of get told it every now and then. Everyone that she meets has the brain of a 12-year-old, including her. Every conversation they have is how you would expect 12-year-olds to interact, down to, like, I get it, college students play party games. They play silly sort of kissing games or whatever, and they try and play it off as, oh, we're just being silly, but really they just want to get off with each other, you know, like, I understand that, but it's kind of all they do. They're having a meal in this place and she mentions that she's going to see her friend Landon later, and then everyone starts laughing and goes, oh, he's a loser, what do you want to hang around him for? And I'm not saying no college students would ever do that, but I've never met any that did do that. Not in that way. Like, everyone's so, like, apart from secrets that are needed in order for there to be a story, there aren't really any. Everyone just kind of says what they think, and everything that they think is very immature. Like, the author, Anna Todd, I believe it is, seems to think that people putting on a really fake smile or saying something incredibly moody is like the height of humour, or thinks that that's how people that age would interact. There's no nuance, there's nothing there. It's just like moody teenager all the time. So they yell at each other. They're either yelling or he barks, you know, he barks, or he yells, or I yell, or it's just like, it's how teenagers kind of interact when they are majorly hormonal. I get the thing that she's going for. She's trying to go for a bad boy. She's trying to go for he's a kind of dangerous guy. He's not who you should be going for. She mentions Wuthering Heights a lot. She mentions Pride and Prejudice. But the difference there is that the authors there were able to frame the story as either a kind of obsessive gothic romance, or coming together through not liking each other at the start, but eventually things change. In the case of Pride and Prejudice, she doesn't just start humping Mr. Darcy whilst he's being absolutely awful to her. It's a process, and there's no process here. Same with Wuthering Heights. It's never framed as Cathy and Heathcliff being like this couple who you know are going to like make it, and you hope that they do, and that you know it's going to end bad. I'm not saying that the bad guy can't ever redeem himself through the book, but there's just none of that here. He is relentlessly awful, and she relentlessly puts up with it, and she's actually also relentlessly awful. She slut shames like you would not believe. If it was, again, framed as she makes these judgments on people and yet learns later that she's incorrect, or we know that she is kind of an unpleasant character, and we see other people's kind of reaction to that, you know, perhaps she alienates people, or in the story is somehow framed around the fact that what she's doing is unpleasant, but again, that doesn't happen, and so all I can assume is that that is how Anna Todd believes things are. There's a point where she looks at her new roommate at college and sees the terrible slutty things that she wears, and she thinks when her new roommate goes off to a party, she thinks, why couldn't I have been put with someone who liked to read and liked to study? Well, I remember doing both. I remember, okay, I wasn't great at studying, I'm gonna be honest, but I always read a ton, and I also at that age liked to go out and party and drink and that sort of thing. So I don't really understand why it's one or the other, and that narrative is very much present in this all the way through. The good girl is a virgin, and if she ever does anything with a boy, it's not seen as bad. It was a mistake. She was kind of led into it. She was led to believe it was okay, even though it's not. Whereas all the other female characters who do it for fun, they're a slut. And you find that particularly with the character of Molly, who is just like, every time she's mentioned, it's one of the other characters saying, of course Molly got naked, of course Molly took her top off. And she's relentlessly a bitch. She's probably the nastiest, well, apart from Hardin, the nastiest character in it. Also, I have to read you the bit where her mother finds out she's going out with Hardin. The whole thing is very soap opera, but this bit in particular, and her mother seems to be like, imagine the Wicked Witch of The Wizard of Oz in the role, and we'll go from there. The room starts spinning. I was not prepared to go to war with my mother, not today at least. I knew it would be a matter of time before she found out, but she wasn't even on my radar for today. I knew something was going on from the first time I saw him in your room. I just didn't think you'd be so quick to open your legs for him. Hardin steps between us. You're taking this too far, he warns her with dark eyes. I think Hardin might be the only person who could actually give my mother a run for her money. Yes, because they're both awful. You stay out of this, she snaps, crossing her arms once more. If you continue to see him, I will no longer speak to you, and you surely can't pay for college on your own. This storm alone cost me thousands, she shrieks. I'm astounded that my mother would go there. You're threatening my education because you don't approve of who I'm in love with? In love with? She scoffs. Oh, Teresa, my naive Teresa, you have no idea what love is. She laughs, making a sound that is more like a sickening cackle. And you think he loves you? I do love her, Hardin interrupts. Sure you do. Her head falls back. Mother, Teresa, I'm warning you. If you don't stop seeing him, there will be consequences. I'm leaving now, but I expect a call after you clear your head. She storms out of my room, and I go into the doorway to watch her as she stomps away, her heels clunking and echoing down the hall. And then she flies off on a broomstick. That bit doesn't happen, but it should. The way the author presents the story appears very sheltered, whether she is or not. That's all I'm trying to say. The stoners are evil. Whenever you think something interesting is going to happen, like a bit of tension between the group, it's just through some stupid kissing party game. Like, just when I thought it was going to get slightly more interesting, I thought that the big secret that Hardin had maybe was, spoilers ahead, was that he was a drug dealer. I honestly thought that's what was coming up. But no, it's just that he had a bet on over who was going to get into her pants first. And yeah, that could be interesting if it was also offset maybe by the drug dealing thing or anything else. I mean, even Romeo and Juliet had a secondary story running at the same time. This was just all the other characters existing purely to either bolster the main character or tear her down or comment on her appearance. Like, people are busy. If people sometimes look at another person and think, oh, they look a bit like knackered or something, you don't always say it. You don't go, oh no, you look tired. How are you? Come on, we've all got work to do. It just doesn't happen. The other characters kind of don't really exist. They're purely ciphers. So yeah, the relationship goes on, and he kind of sequesters her away. He's always telling her to stay in my room, stay here, don't come out, talk to people. And then he eventually insists on getting a apartment, or flat rather, for both of them to live in. And essentially it's to keep her away from the others so they don't find out the secret about the bet, but basically it's to keep her away from the others. It's a classic abuse thing of keeping someone away from everyone so they don't figure out that this is not a good thing that's happening. They want to be the only person in your life so that they can maintain control on you. And there's just a ton of this. Like, there's a ton of him telling her, go back to my room, go back in here, don't talk to this person, he doesn't like it when she talks to any men. This is a bit from that. The most frustrating part of my relationship with Hardin is that I never know what I'm allowed to tell people. If I were in a normal relationship, I would respond with, oh yeah, we had a great time last night at his father's wedding. But since my relationship is far from normal, I stay quiet. Yeah. And I kind of feel like it could have worked as a story about abuse or a toxic relationship or something of that kind. But, it's framed as a romance, and the film is framed as a romance. The posters, the pictures, the ads, everything makes it look like a romance. And it's anything but. If she was trying to go for Wuthering Heights, it didn't work. And I'm not saying she's in full control of promotion. That's on the promoters. But the story itself is framed as a romance as well. There's nothing that says that that's not what's going on. A ton of victim blaming, a ton of boring parties, and her internship is the most boring thing I've ever read. I just feel that perhaps the author didn't have the understanding of that kind of situation or the ability to tell it properly. But it was interesting as a person who has had people say the things that Hardin has said and kind of gone through something a bit like that. It was interesting to kind of get such a two-dimensional take on the whole thing. And the bit that I gave up on... Okay, so she goes to a conference with her new internship. For the millionth time, Hardin has decided that he does not want her interacting with anyone else other than him. If she even looks at another guy, he goes off his head, She said hello to someone at work and he went off his nut. The day that they moved in somewhere, he was throwing a paddy because she asked him how his day was or something. These are not the makings of a romantic lead. She drunkenly phones him after kissing a guy at a party because she's all confused, but she does not tell him where she is. He just turns up and decides that he's going to enter her life again. She's not keen on the idea, but he turns up and insists that they talk. She's been described in the story as wasted, really drunk, very drunk. It's clear that she is intoxicated, but he just kind of does it with her anyway. He's sober, I just want to make that clear. They're not both drunk. He's sober, he drove there. She wakes up the next morning, she's not okay with this, she feels like something's wrong. And yes, there is something wrong with that. There's something very wrong with that. So she's in the shower, she comes out and she says, I'm really not okay with what just happened. And he flips it round to, well, I was saying no, but you wouldn't take no for an answer. I didn't want to do it, but you were pushing yourself on me. It's like, come on, that's classic abuse technique. Like I hate Christian Grey, I think he's awful, but at least he somewhat had some redeeming features. This guy has none. He has absolutely none. And when I see good reviews about this, I feel like I've entered the Twilight Zone. Let me read this section. Hardin. You knew what you were doing when you let me stay. No, I didn't, I whine. There's so much whining in this. I whine, I yell, I bark. I was intoxicated. I didn't know what I was doing at all last night, from kissing that guy to letting you in. Immediately, I snap my mouth shut. I did not just say that out loud, but by the way Hardin's eyes pop and his jaw clenches, I know that I did. My headache multiplies by 10, and I want to slap myself. What? What did you just say? He growls. Oh yeah, he growls a lot too. Yeah, he's so hot. Nothing. You kissed someone? Who? He asks, his voice strained as if he just ran a marathon. Someone at the club, I admit. Are you serious? He breathes. And when I nod, he explodes. What the actual beep? Tessa, you kiss some guy at a club, then have sex with me? Who are you? He runs his hands over his face. If I know him as well as I think I do, he's getting ready to break something. It just happened, and we aren't even together. I try to defend myself, but only make myself sound worse. Wow, you are unbelievable. My Tessa would never kiss a stranger at a club, he barks. So yeah, this is a mess. This story is an absolute mess. I gave up at that point, just so you know. I was like, if this was a paperback, I'd be throwing it. I don't even find this funny anymore. So I gave up. But yeah, I mean, you know, read it if you want. Just be aware that it's a really unpleasant story. Like, it's kind of funny at first, but then that was like my no point. Like, if you read beyond, I think it probably gets worse. I hear he sets a fire to a house or something, but I kind of recommend it for the curiosity aspect, and you know, to have a chuckle. I laughed so much at certain points. God, I'm being so mean. I'm sorry. It's just I was a bit shocked by it all. So sorry, this is really mean. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to read the books that I got from Edgelit now, which I'm very excited by, and I know that they will be good. So I'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.